Welcome, welcome back to SpeakPact. Today, I am super thrilled to have Daryl Stinson with us. He is a former Division One pro athlete. He is a best-selling author, a two-time TEDx presenter, and his journey is incredibly inspiring. And what he has done with what could have been deemed as a big mess at one season of his life is just profound. The impact that he's making in other people's lives. So, before we dive into all of that, I just want to say welcome, Daryl, and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me. It's going to be fun.
Going to be fun. It's going to be a great ride. All right. So, tell me a little bit about. I know that your focus, number one, is supporting those who are struggling with mental wellness, right? Um, it's just one of several things that you do, and you've taken that to the stage in a pretty powerful way. Can you just take us to the beginning and tell us a little bit about why that's an important topic for you, and what are some of the main messages that you get out there on the stage?
Yeah, man, mental health is an important topic to me because I think if a person isn't mentally well, it affects all areas of their life. And there's a spectrum of mental wellness. There's like a crisis spectrum, like a person that was in maybe a phase like I was, where I was really low depressed, suicidal ideations, drug abuse and use, and a lot of misaligned living, compromising my values, not living authentically to who I really am in life. All that stuff causes greater emotional overwhelm. And with um oh, pull me back into I was going deep. I was
Well,
going deep.
I'm
Yeah.
loving it. What role does being authentic play
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
mental stability?
That's a good thing. It's like it's a big huge role because when I'm overwhelmed emotionally, a lot of things that helps me to resolve that overwhelm, to lighten that burden is to gain clarity over what it is that's bothering me emotionally.
Yeah.
And when people just don't know what it is, and they're like, well, it's this, but they say it's the relationship, but they know that this is the third relationship. Or they say that it's the classes that they're in, but they know that they're doing 6 hours of, drinking or I don't know, binge watching some show that they know is just not a, it's not that it's a bad thing, it's just not a effective use of their time. Like they know within themselves that there's an area where they could be doing something different. So they know it's not actually about, say, the relationship or the financial situation or even the grief or the loss. Sometimes it's about, man, I don't feel like I know what I want to do with my life. Sometimes it's like, man, I feel like I never really receive love in the ways that I give. And that emotional clarity is what reduces and alleviates some of the burden.
Hmm.
Just like a modality like breath does to regulate one's nervous system. And I believe in breath, and there's all types of modalities to calm the nervous system to get to a place of emotional clarity. But the reason why the journaling and the awareness over what it is exactly emotionally that's bothering me is important is because with only having breath, with no journal emotional clarity, the only way you find peace is when you can stay breathing the whole time. And sometimes it helps to resolve it intellectually as well as have the tool of being able to utilize the breath. So it's really both in how they work together. So that's what helped me to overcome it in my life, and I believe that's an important reason why people should lean into that area of their life a little bit more because it's
Right. And I
connected
think the
to
more
everything.
successful you get, the more anxiety you're up against. And so instead of just stuffing that down, actually facing it and doing some of these things, some of these tools that you teach from the big stage, right?
Yeah.
Journaling, deep breathing, getting authentic, all of those different kinds of things. What was the trigger for you, Daryl, where you're like, I have found something. I've found something that saved my life. I've found something that has allowed my family to breathe easy with regards to me and those who love me. I'm not going to just keep this to myself. I'm going to get out there and share. I mean, you had anxiety for somebody who has that and want to get on a big stage like that in itself could be a real mountain to overcome. What gave you that courage and that determination? Because now you're a sought after speaker. Like, how did you go from finding these solutions, actually living these solutions, and wanting to take it to a bigger stage scale?
Oh, well, there was two ways. Number one, people believed in me when I felt I didn't have a belief in myself. So I noticed that when people would say, "You're a great leader," and you're a really great speaker, and I would be like, "No, I'm not. This is da 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 da," and I go into this freak out response about it. I started to instead trust, like maybe they're right, and maybe I am perceiving myself through the lens of my insecurities rather that is through the lens of who I really am.
So what?
And it's
Okay.
yeah, and it's I had to trust that people were being truthful when they gave me these compliments. And maybe I was a better speaker than I thought. Maybe I was a better leader than I thought. Not that I was the best leader, but a better leader than I thought. So therefore, I just had a little bit more confidence, a little bit more self-esteem, a little bit more trust in myself.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the anxiety was actually coming from the resistance to
Mm.
speak my truth, to be honest about what I wanted in life, to choose the career path that mattered to me, to express the gifts that mattered to me, to say things online that I wouldn't normally say online, to be truthful, to be honest, to be bold, to be courageous. And that's what public speaking has always been about. That is what makes it more than a business and more than a way to generate revenue or clients or any of that. All that stuff is necessary because every ministry has means. But it's like what keeps us focused is the courage, is the why are we listening, is the what are we collectively doing in whatever industry that we're in, whatever path that each and every one of us is on. We all are better together, as cheesy as that sounds. And the more we can articulate our truth, our expression, our measure, the more the fullness of the colors come together.
Mm.
Short little story. I went to a TED Women conference this year because I just wanted to go and I wanted to support. And they had this big giant map of, I think it was the state of Georgia. And I don't know what it was. It might have been the world. I don't know. It was a big giant map. And they had like 108 colors that you could choose from, and there was like zero instructions. It was just like, I think, take the marker, color a spot or multiple on the map. And some people were like coloring it in, some people were like writing initials and then coloring it in. And it just became this thing where the thousands and thousands of people that were there each kind of just followed their own gut instinct about where they wanted to color, what they wanted to color, which color they wanted to choose. And it at the end of it, it became so beautiful. So
Mm.
the more authentic each and every person was to, I don't know, this is my favorite color. I don't know, this looks better next to the colors that's on there. Whatever their rationale was, without judgment, without force, the the more beautiful the picture became.
Mm.
As it is with that picture, so it is with life every day in our communities. The more we live out this authentic expression of ourselves, the more colorful, vibrant, attractive, unique our communities become. And these are things that I see over and over. And there's places that are out there doing this marvelously and brilliantly. And I'm just ambassador of that message.
Ah, oh my gosh, there was so much that you said in there that was gorgeous. And you're so right. I agree with you. right? We cannot be an island unto ourselves, and when we are, it's everything goes gray. it's it's not as colorful and as beautiful and as impactful, or as meaningful. All the great things in this world. I also wanted to dial back a little bit because you said, you started off with something very profound that I'd never really looked at it this way. That anxiety can actually increase when you hold back from stepping into your more powerful being, right? Your whether that's getting your voice out there, and for this audience, it is.
Yeah,
And when you have that resistance
yeah,
to getting your voice out there, maybe on bigger stages or
yeah,
in platforms that you aren't super comfortable with, that in itself creates the resistance itself creates anxiety and perpetuates that. I that was really telling, right? I think
yeah,
sometimes we say, I have this thing, whether it's anxiety or whatever it is, so I can't do this other thing. When actually by not doing it, you're creating it. It's kind of reverse engineering.
yeah. Totally. I know, man, and it's interesting to start to see that in our life. And at the same time, there's natural things with the body too that we can do, right? There's nutrition and the foods that we're eating, the TV that we watch, the people that we surround ourselves with, the conversation that we have with ourselves in our head. All these things just affect our quality of life, regardless if we are in a mental health crisis or we are on a contributing spectrum and we are, you know, doing a lot for companies and communities and, family and friends and nonprofits, all the things. It's everyone still needs to monitor that and steward the awareness in all areas of their life.
Yes. Yeah, and that's you're speaking to the choir here in this group, and I love it. So you have really mastered the art of vulnerability, weaving vulnerability and storytelling throughout your talks without in a place of real power, which is kind of a hard dance to dance. You are a powerful looking human being. You're well built. You're handsome. You're strong. You're not, tiny cowering sort of human being, and so it might feel like, I don't know, for if I get vulnerable, I'm going to relinquish this place of presence, right? But instead, you really utilize it in a way that captivates an audience and says, I can relate. I can relate to Daryl. That's how I'm feeling, whether it's a woman, a man, someone who is at whatever stage of their life that they're in, physically, mentally, emotionally, they can relate to those real stories that you put through. Did that come naturally? Did you study the craft? Like, how did you get that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I studied the craft and learned everything that I shouldn't do. It's like all of the craft that I learned was just another tool to keep me from being real. And it's like, why couldn't I be real? Well, it's because I have been rejected when I was real.
Mm,
And somewhere in my life where, it's like people say to me all the time that I'm not an emotional person, right? And they have all this reason and rationale. Oh, I've always been this way. Ask my who and who, say and say, this is this. I have nicknames. I'm not emotional. I don't cry at funerals. I don't, like people say stuff like that. And it's like somewhere in their upbringing, there's usually a moment that they were emotional, whether that be sadness or a display of emotion around their gift. Maybe they were really excited and thought they could be an astronaut, and someone laughed at them.
mm,
They were rejected when there was an authentic expression in their upbringing. And because they didn't want to appear weak or sensitive to that person or in that situation, if it was environmental, then they closed that part of themselves and cut off because they said emotions are not safe.
Mm,
And then that created a trajectory of not being an emotional person. Well, how do I know that? Because that was me when I was younger, and my uh, elders would spank me when I would get emotional. And then if I were to get more emotional because I'm getting spanked, they would say, "You better stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." And it would
mm,
be a threat. And as a young kid, I cut off my emotions. On top of that, I was a man and raised in a low income community. I was predominantly black, and that was the culture, was that men do not show weakness. And
mm.
add on to top of that I was an athlete, so it was like, don't display weakness, be tough and overcome pain. So the level of emotional suppression that I had was keeping me from being authentic leader, speaker, uh, neighbor, friend, associate, coworker, and all the things that I then became out author. All those things came out of being more, giving myself more permission and having more courage to be and do what it is that I really want to be and do.
And I'm sure that that is something that grips an audience when you're in front of them because you could get up there and act like you've always had it all together and you've had all these successes, and who can relate to that, right? Somewhere along the line, life teaches us all to hide. All of us have had something that happens that say, "Hey, if you want to stay safe, hide this thing, right? Don't show it, whatever." Somehow in there, you got the message that if I keep going down that path, I'm never going to get well. I'm never going to live my greatest life. You figured it out for yourself. And it's a journey, right? It's an evolution. There's a new level, new devil, new level, new challenge. We discover something, we unwrap something new in ourselves, but you've got it in that commitment to not be authentic, and that commitment to allow a little bit of vulnerability to be seen has really, I think, been probably one of the greatest reasons why you're invited back to stages, because you connect on that level with all different kinds of people who may have never been an athlete or have you never really walked that side of your journey, but they have walked areas of that pain, and you give them hope that they can actually get through that. So why do you think that there are certain people who will never understand, or at least they don't at this moment, they don't see why a, there is safety in vulnerability, right? And maybe they battle with that to the extent where they resist even speaking publicly because they're afraid of being found out. Like, what is it that can take somebody from that space to a more empowered space where they're fine with sharing some of the harder things?
That's a really good question. Um, I think if we were to poll the audience right now and say, "Hey, how many of you believe that vulnerability is a superpower?" I think people would be like, "Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, vulnerability is a superpower. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, of course, of course, of course." Right? And then there's going to be yeah, 15% of the audience that's going to be like, "No, vulnerability is for wimps." Like, okay, so we can deal with the 15% at some point. It's fine. They'll carve their way forward in life, but let's talk about the rest. Okay. So everyone will be like, "Yeah, vulnerability strength." Okay. But then when you hear them talk about the execution of vulnerability, we talk about it like it's a tactic versus a way of life. We talk about it, we treat it as if it's a weakness and not as if it's a strength. When we cry, for instance, we say things like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." We apologize for something that's strong. But we don't apologize when we say, "Hey, I got a promotion at work." We don't say, "Hey, I got a promotion. Oh, I'm so sorry." Because we think that promotion is worth celebrating, but not vulnerability. So part of it is changing our response to vulnerability. And it's starting to happen. People are applauding it. Thank you for being real, honest, raw, authentic, vulnerable. Thank you. It's us being comfortable with that new paradigm.
You go as far as you talk a lot about vulnerable communication,
Yeah.
which it almost feels like oxymoron in some senses, right? If you're going to get up there and share your brilliance and transform lives, you want to stand in a place of strength and power and not vulnerability. But I love what you just said, that vulnerability is a superpower, especially when you want to get a powerful message across. So kudos to you. Like, how does somebody who doesn't even know what that means dive into that and even know? I do know as a speaker. Oh, yeah,
Hold
you go
on.
ahead. Go,
Can I
go.
jump
Yeah.
in? Because what you said was extremely powerful. I think it was a powerful question. How does someone who's never done that? Because I was that someone. I argued with my therapist and told them like, oh, I said I was an emotional person. I, in the beginning, I didn't even know how to describe my emotions. So I got the emotional wheel by Robert Plucknick, I think his last name is. And I started to just look at that emotional wheel and go, matter of fact, I still have it. I'll go grab it
Okay.
here in my
For all of
office.
you
Look
who
at
are
this.
with us on video, you'll get to see this.
I know.
Otherwise, you can look it up.
I know. I'm sorry. I know
That's
all of you
okay.
are only
Oh,
friends.
it's
We
on a
see that.
pillow. That's amazing. I've seen that before.
I know. And so I
Oh,
used to go, when I feel overwhelmed, I used to go, huh, is it overwhelmed or is it humiliated? Is it insecure? Is it anxious? Am I startled? Am I confused? Oh. And then that helped me a
so
lot.
like
And
that
that
surface emotion wasn't what was really going on, I think is what you're saying, right? You were
totally, totally. And even as a profession, what I could actually articulate and share with an audience became more powerful, more meaningful, more specific because I had language for it. So it's all connected.
mm.
And I think if a person's just getting started, maybe they can start where areas where they feel the most fear, ask themselves why, where does that come from? Or ask themselves, hey, what is the life I really want to create? You know, where do I want to be emotionally, socially, financially, or in my family or life thereof? It's, what I really want. And asking that question is going to pull us into, you know, a deep connection with ourselves.
So like an emotion of stage fright, right? That comes from somewhere. So understanding that's
Totally.
really just a manifestation of something else. If you can deal with the something else, track that back to somebody you loved and adored, and you said, "I want to be an astronaut," and they said,
Hmm.
"That's ridiculous. Why are you even
Yeah.
thinking that?"
Yeah. I
And
have a
you,
practice that I use to overcome stage fright that I would give to people, but I think very little people would do it. And sometimes we have to examine ourselves because we say that we want things, but then when we're presented with solutions, we actually uh, become afraid of them. It's like, oh, I want to lose weight and I want to be in the best shape of my life, but not more than I actually want you know, the junk food and the things that I really know that put my body in the feeling that I don't really like long term. So here's what it is, okay? Overcoming stage fright. If anyone dares to take on the challenge, maybe there's a few of us daring ones, I guess, as
yeah,
even
let's do
Brene
it.
Brown says that daring to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
Uh, Here's what I did. I got Google, YouTube searched celebration music, celebration moments, crowd celebrating, a crowd celebrating and cheering. Okay. got headphones that I could hear really clearly, only the noise in my headphones, noise cancellation. Okay, so all I can hear is the music coming through. Then go in an office or in the backyard or to a park where there's a little bit of privacy and do a speech or say something that you really want to be heard about. Say something that you really believe in. Say something that really matters. And at the moment where you finish that exhaustion or that expression, turn on that celebration music and go, oh yeah, and celebrate and celebrate. Because what it's going to do is change your reaction to being in full expression and power and strength and authenticity and vulnerability. It's like, or if what happens is you start to cry, go for it, snot it out, tear it out, do what you have to do. And then it's like, okay, now I have comfort with this, even in a social environment, perceivably, because there's an audience that's cheering for you, cheering for you, cheering for you. And that graduates into feeling those moments in front of audiences of 5, 50. The number doesn't matter when you get that level of internal love for yourself.
Mm. Oh my goodness. That is brilliant. And we've heard it, dance like nobody's looking. I think that's the term. You just
Yep.
explain that in such a vivid way
Yeah.
in the Daryl Stinson way,
Uh,
right? What courage that takes, because we're not speaking for ourselves. It's almost selfish not to get our message out there because we're afraid of busting out and making a fool of ourselves or whatever it might be. We're holding back something that could change another person's life. So that practice that you just gave us is just like, forget about it. I'm very Italian. Forget about it. You don't need to worry about what people think. You just need to worry about what the message is. Get past it, right? And get it out there no matter what. Um, that is brilliant. That's fun. I want to see a lot of people out there doing just that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
So, what do you think? I believe that the vulnerability piece is a big part of this, but what are some other factors that you think have contributed to the fact that your TEDx Talks has millions of views, not just 500, not just 100,000, but millions of views? What is resonating? What are people after that can get that many people interested?
I think people should just go watch the video and read, or if they don't want to watch the video, go read the comments first and then watch the video because the comments, the good majority of them, there's some, uh, you know, normal people in there. You know,
Not
they're,
crazies.
they're, I don't know what to call them. You know, there's some mischievous folks, but the majority of it is some really authentic feedback and gratitude or what resonated for them. But typically, it's around these moments in their life where they felt like who they were being authentically wasn't enough to be liked or loved by other people and how they dim their light, uh, cage their belief, question their personality from those moments. And that conversation just has progressed. And I've been having the same conversation with audiences that I speak to in person to a degree. Because whether they watch the talk or not, they're going to hear similar stories and a narrative around a more authentic way to live and be and contribute in this world.
Somehow you have turned your message into a movement, yes, through your TEDx talks, but through so much more, through your book and all the other ways that you get your voice out there. Tell me a little bit about that. What does it feel like to know that you've gotten over yourself. You've allowed yourself to be vulnerable, even just sometimes just standing on a stage, even if you don't share maybe some of the deeper things that have happened to you, just standing there and delivering any kind of message it can make you feel a bit exposed and vulnerable. But what what do you think the main keys are that have, number one, driven you to take your message and make a movement, but that has actually resonated? Like, you can have the idea to do that, but you've made it happen.
Yeah, so the first thing that happened was we talked about stage fright, and one of the things that I did was I became a teacher's assistant in a public speaking class that was at the university that I was working for because I was able to take classes for free and all I had to do was pay taxes.
Nice.
That was one of the perks of working there. And so I also became a teaching assistant because I developed a relationship with the professor and he saw potential in me. So he would have me, do assignments. And one of those things was to, uh, you know, see communication as something I'm doing. Sorry. See communication as something that I'm doing all
Uh
the time and not just something that I'm doing when I'm on a stage. So when I'm talking to my friends, I'm communicating. When I am sending an email, obviously I'm communicating. When I'm out at dinner, I'm communicating. When I call the customer service people, I'm communicating. And that started to reduce the anxiety because I would see moments where I was not fearful to speak my opinion, to laugh like I wanted to laugh, to communicate or say what I wanted to say. And that helped me to see opportunities to do that in the other areas, aka from the stage itself. And so that was one of the things that I started to do more and more. So bring me back to your question. 100%, 100%,
So your
100%.
self-expression was actually part of your healing, sounded like. Mhm. That's amazing. Yeah. So tell me, what has speaking, other than knowing the fulfillment of knowing that you're transforming lives, what has it done for your life? What have these TED Talks and
Man, I just
these
want to say that
speaking
there is a
engagements done for
choice
your
in here.
career,
It's
for your
like two
family, for you
paths fork
personally
in the
as a
road.
man?
There's a path where you're performing and you've learned stagecraft and you learn how to tell compelling stories and give people 3 points and a call to action. And there's nothing wrong with that path, but that is a path. But then there's a path, call it this other path. And that path is about a deeper, authentic way of living. It's not about performing, it's about a passing on of one's legacy. When you think about famous people who you know of but you've never met, what you remember about them is the story about the way that they lived and the lives that they served. And so speaking becomes a way of doing that in the world. And that's what it's always was in its inception. We told stories to pass on legacy in our cultures and beliefs in our family. And it's the same way. And so, uh, when you say, what has it done for me? It has caused me to live in a more authentic, vulnerable, congruent way. And so that doesn't sound so poetic. I always tell this story to audiences. I say, hey, man, there was a time where I only knew to express anger because that was the only one I was used to as a man and all the story I told before. And so when I got married, when me and my wife used to argue, I always go into, man, yeah, why are you talking to me like this? I'm yelling, I'm yelling, right? And I'm in therapy one day, and my therapist asked me, Daryl, it sounds like you were actually hurt, not angry. Is that true? And I said, I guess so. She said, well, how about next time
Mm.
you feel this way about the situation in your marriage, you say something that's more truthful and authentic to you, which is that you're hurt instead of that you're angry. And I said, okay, I'll try it, sure. And so there goes, I don't know. It wasn't immediately, to be honest. It was like after 3 months of avoiding it, I finally decided in this heat of the moment to switch. And instead of being like, I hate the way you talk to me. You always want it your way. Pick a place to eat. I was like, sweetheart, it feels like my opinion doesn't really matter to you, and that hurts my feelings. And how she treated a person who was hurt by her is different than how she would treat a husband who was angry at her. And that made improved our relationship. And so this has practical, and I can tell you another
Wow.
story about my career or a speaking fee that I earned, and how there was a connecting within that created this abundance without. And that's kind of the path of life, in my opinion.
Connecting within to create abundance without. That's a writer downer. Make a t-shirt. That's really, really good, Daryl. And I love that
That's all.
illustration that you gave us with your wife, because really our audiences are the same way, right? You get out there and you're all amazing, and you know you're amazing, and you tell everybody
Totally.
how amazing you are. They're just going to kind of come up against that because they may not be feeling so amazing right then. And the last thing you want is an amazing person telling you how amazing they are if you're not feeling that yourself. But when you get to the point where you switch the narrative and say, "Yeah, I've
Right.
accomplished a lot. I'm doing pretty darn good,
Right.
but it wasn't always this way. And these are some of the things that I had to overcome to get to where I am." And it's a continual journey. Hopefully, we never
Right.
arrive, because then
100%.
that should be the last day on the oven. What's the rest of it for, right? So absolutely love. So that's on a psychological level, right? What about on a practical level? What has
Okay.
speaking done
Okay. I just
for
want
to
to
boost
phrase
your
this because I get
career
this a lot. And
and even
practical
your
is that my
revenue?
relationship improved. Is that I said an emotion that was authentic to me. That's very practical. Sometimes we make things emotional feel like they're theoretical, but they're not. They're practical. It's
Mhm.
feeling. It's almost just like me saying, take your finger, touch your heart, or take your hand, touch your heart. It's like, oh, okay, that's practical. You can do that. Take your hand, put it over your heart. Ask yourself, how do you really feel? Get the emotion wheel out. Look at the emotion wheel if you need help, and then start to say that in your
Mm.
relationships or conversations more consistently. And that's practical. To answer your question around career, and the practical
Wow.
application within that, you can look at something as simple as, okay, who is the people who I really want to impact in the world? There was a growing evolution of that in my life. I started in the speaking industry as a marketing consultant because it was easier for me to write and than it was for me to speak. I used to be so afraid to speak in front of people. I used to fake like I had to go to the bathroom during icebreakers so that they would not, call on me to say my name and wherever I'm from. That's how much I hated it. And so, um, every time I tell that story, I get caught in the emotion of it and I lose my train of thought. Help me, bring me back.
Beautiful. No, I love that, because there's so many of us that are in this audience right now listening to you saying, "That's me." Like they wanted,
Yeah.
when the spotlight's coming around the room, I find a way to duck out, right? And you found a way around that. So somehow you busted through that, and this is a major part of your business model and your career. And I would assume
Mhm.
even your income, whether it's coming from the speaker or the audience. So what gave you that just to
It's
step on the
like
other side and do it
I was
anyway? Do it
doing it
scared.
enough that I put enough pressure on myself to show up and keep doing it afraid. Oof. Oh my gosh, I hope the audience gets that. That's so important because there's things that we know we need to do. And if it only was one time we had to show up, we would do it. If I could just do it like quickly and tomorrow, I'd do it. But if it's going to take me 3 months of showing up and facing that fear every single time, maybe not so much. And and that's what I did. So so many things. I
Mhm.
hosted a speaker workshop that was free. and it was a preaching boot camp back in the day, and I was training people to do sermons. I had a whistle. I was blowing it. Every time they started to get on tangents, I'd be like, and off topic, stay focused, focus on the audience, focus on serving. Every time they shrink and get afraid and start like just making up stuff, I'd blow the whistle. And so I had to show up for them. I would say yes to speaking at a high school because somebody asked, or I would be at a conversation with somebody and say, "Oh, I'm a speaker," because I was kind of trying to do the thing, but not really doing the thing. And then they would allow me to speak, and so I started to just say yes to things, so that I had to show up, even though I was definitely afraid. Like so many stories. Like I always tell the one of where I repeated or wrote my speech out word for word, recited it into a recorder, and then left my headphones in to give people the appearance that I forgot to take my headphones out, and I hit play on the recorder and I started to recite what was coming through my headphones. And the problem is that I talk a lot faster than I read. And so I got off sync with the recording and I started to repeat sentences and do all this stuff. And so that was I just had to keep showing up even though I was that nervous, even though I was that afraid. And from doing that over months and years, that started to change me. And especially the more I started to see people's lives being impacted. Because then it was like, hold on a second. The more I grow, the more I express, the more I clarify, the more I make this easier for people to feel or understand, the more lives that are being changed. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is a dream that my story, that my insight could make a difference in people's lives that I talk to. Breath away. Yeah. Yeah.
So good, Daryl. So
Yes.
good. Say yes so that you have to show up, right? You say yes, you have to show up. Do it. Scrappy's the new perfect. I don't think any of us relate to perfection anymore. We don't I don't want to I want to learn from an authentic human being, right? I want to glean and be transformed by an authentic human being, not somebody who has everything together and has all the
Yeah.
answers. So, if you had never done that, Daryl, we'll start winding it down, but if you had never had the courage or even the insight to do that, how different would your success look like right now, your income look like right now, your family, your
Wow.
lifestyle? How
Wow.
different would
That's a
all of
really
that
powerful
look for
question.
you right now?
I'd be happy. I'd feel like we always can find happiness in our comfort zone. I'd have money in my savings account. I'd own probably a home and maybe a rental property. I'd go to my kids' softball games and plays at school. I'd speak at high schools and volunteer at local organizations. Deep down inside, deep down inside, something would be missing. I would be living with that, not sharing it with too much of anyone because why talk about something that is just a dream? So,
Wow. What a contrast. What a contrast to see where you are right now because you had that courage. And I love that you said, "Hey,
I
I'd still
would.
have a life. I'd still I'd still be find some
Yeah,
happiness in that." But
I
your
know.
gut would know, right? Your
And
heart would know that you're holding back.
my friend is a mental health crisis.
So good.
We brought it full circle. We brought it full circle. that living in that is a mental health challenge because I know there's more in me. Yes. Okay.
Mhm.
Yay.
Ah, yeah, so powerful. Okay, I know that a good number of those who are with us right now are resonating with you and they want to know, where do I find Daryl Stinson? I know they could just Google your name, number one, and your links will be down
Yeah,
below.
so
Tell us a little bit
find me
about your
at
book and some
Stinson
of the ways that
Speaks,
you work with people.
STINSonspeaks. Hit me up if you want to come to TEDx events or you want to speak. Hit me up if my message inspires you and you are like, oh, I'm a speaker too. Like I'm open for conversations, connections, collaborations, all the things. Um, and my book, man, my book, Who Am I After Sports? You know, I'm relaunching it this week. Bam! See that? Um, new cover coming out. Okay, it
Who,
helps you
who
with
am I
purpose
after
discovery,
sports? Yeah,
transition. Hear about my story. Man, this book has changed so many lives. It's been out for I don't know 3 years or so, and it's continues to just impact lives all the time. So new cover coming out there for those on video. You can't see it, but it's a whole new announcement, whole new expression in the world. So man, grab it from Amazon, and more importantly, if you wanted to go towards athletes in transition, grab it when you
nice.
from our websites. Okay. So yeah, just go to my
Sure. What is your
socials. You'll see
website? I'll
all of
make
it.
sure to
Just
have
click
the
the
link
links to
in
my
the
socials. It's fine.
description. But is
Yeah,
it
or
Daryl? Okay. Okay. Ooh, love that. Mhm. Are those on location or are some of those virtual or where at? Nice. Worth the trip, wherever it is, worth the trip. Mm. Ah, brilliant, brilliant. I wanna come. I'm gonna look it up. I think that'd be so much fun. Okay, so this show is Speak Pact, and one of the things we do is we make a pact together to get out there, get our voices heard, and impact in the way that we only can. Right? I can have your exact script, Daryl, and I will never touch the people the way you are going to touch them with your stories and who you are. You're going to have my exact script, right? And only we can get our messages across in the way that we get them across. So those who hold back their voices actually hold back transformation in countless lives, right? So what is your pact with this audience? What is your challenge to this audience to that you want them to make a pact with you that they'll go out there and they'll do? Ooh, I love that. Live more. That's beautiful. I want the t-shirt. Live more vulnerably. Stand we're gonna start a, swag store, guys. Live more vulnerably, stand more powerfully, and laugh along the way. You said it. You said it. Okay, I take the challenge. Thank you, Daryl. This has been tons of fun, incredibly insightful. I hope you'll allow me to ask you back at some point because I know we've only just touched the surface. You're a powerhouse. Thank you for bringing your wisdom to us. Yeah, do it. Do it for sure. If they were awake, they took some things away. Now it's just implementing those things, right? All right. We'll see you soon. Ciao, ciao for now.